So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 10, Slok number 4, in the chapter entitled Maharaj Rahugana meets Jad Bharat. It's 3 or 4? Yesterday they told me 4, huh? Which one did we do yesterday? Well, somehow he told me 4. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So text number 3, excuse me. Ata ta Ishvara vachaha Supalambam Upakarnyupaya Turiyach Chankita Manasas Tam Vigyapayam Bahuvu. So there's no meter to it, so we'll just read it word for word. Ata, thus, te, they, the carriers of the palanquin. Ishvaravachaha, the words of the master, King Rahugana. Sa upalambam, with reproach. Upakarnya, hearing. Upaya, the means. Turiyat, from the fourth one. Shankita Manasa, whose minds were afraid. Tam, him, the king. Vigyapayam, Bahuvahu, informed. Translation: when the palanquin carriers heard the threatening words of Maharaj Rahugana, they became very afraid of his punishment and began to speak to him as follows. Translation, please repeat. When the palanquin carriers heard the threatening words of Maharaj Rahugana, they became very afraid of his punishment and began to speak to him as follows. Purport. According to political science, the king sometimes tries to pacify his subordinates, sometimes chastises them, sometimes derides them, and sometimes rewards them. In this way, the king rules his subordinates. The bearers of the palanquin could understand the king was angry and that he would chastise him. Atata Ishvara vacha sopalambam Upakarnyopayaya turiyach Chankita manasasta vigyapayam bahubu. When the palanquin carriers heard the threatening words of Maharaj Rahugana, they became very much afraid of his punishment and began to speak to him as follows. So as we're hearing, somehow one of the palanquin bearers became became disabled. So they saw this fellow sitting there, so they grabbed Jad Bharat and asked him to carry the palanquin. The next verse, which I studied, will describe how all the other palanquin carriers, they were Sudras, but Jad Bharat was a Brahmin. So Sudras, they don't care about the sentiments of other living beings, but a Brahmin, he can't even give harm to an ant. So Jad Bharat was jumping here and there, trying to avoid stepping on the ants and causing some trouble. So naturally, Maharaj Rahugana, because kings, they're very precise about everything, especially their sense gratification. They're very precise and very controlled. So he was getting bumped, so he became quite angry. And the palanquin bearers, they could understand it wasn't their fault, it was the other guy's fault. We'll see tomorrow, they'll blame it all on Jad Bharat. So they're anticipating, Prabhupada says they're anticipating Danda. Prabhupada says here the king, he rules by Asama, Danda, what is the other one? Danda, Bed. By sometimes pacifying, sometimes giving danda, sometimes making divisions, and sometimes rewarding. Dan. So they're expecting danda. So anyway, there's not much of a purport, but that's good because today is the holy disappearance day. Now I realize why the Vaishnav song is here. We should have chanted Ye Dilno Premadana, but anyway. Today is also the holy disappearance day of Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Dena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparandigam Adadanastryanandantai Vridam Yache Puna Puna Srimad Rupa Padambujo Dulisyam Janma Janmani Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. By spiritual masters opened my eyes, the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Therefore I offer my humble obeisances at his lotus feet. Vanchakalpatrubhischa kripasinnu vevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on his Dakshin Bharat Yatra, just about this time actually, he entered Sri Rangam on the first day of Chaturmasya, just like a few days before, after the Guru Purnima, then that is the first day of Chaturmasya. So he went to take darshan of Lord Ranganath. And as soon as he saw this beautiful deity of Lord Ranganath is lying down. Somehow or other, Krishna never let me go to South India. I lived here for many, many years, I never went to South. And finally when I got to South, then Krishna showed me that what will you see there? One place I'm lying like this, one place I'm lying like that. In Sri Ranga I'm lying looking to the south, like that. And the other place you have to make an appointment and meet me in the office. So in Rangashetra, Ranganath, he's lying down, but he's facing toward the south. He's facing toward the south. To favor his devotee Bibhishan. Because this deity is old deity. This is from time of Ravana even. And I can't remember the history, but somehow or other they were taking him away and he stopped in Sri Rangam. And Bibhishan requested him that you face towards me, and I'm down there in Sri Lanka. So you face towards me. So Lord Ranganath, he's sleeping to the south. We'll go in another temple, Ananta Padmanabha, he's facing another direction. And there's one more deity, I can't remember, now he's facing in another direction. So one is lying this way, one is lying this way, one's lying facing to the south. So Mahaprabhu saw this beautiful deity. Actually this deity is very enchanting. Because in, I believe it's Ramanuja's time, there was one fellow, he was simply following one woman around and just staring at her eyes. He was captivated by her beautiful eyes. Even he would carry parasol over her head. So Ramanujacharya, he saw this fellow, he's so attached to this girl's eyes. He called him, he said, "You come with me." And he took him in the Ranganath temple, and he had the pujari put the lamp close to Lord Ranganath's face. He saw these beautiful lotus petal eyes of Lord Ranganath. He forgot everything in this world. They're so enchanting. So Mahaprabhu also saw this beautiful form of Lord Ranganath with his beautiful lotus petal eyes. He just began to dance in ecstasy. He was leaping in the air and spinning. Now this was quite a show for the South Indians. When they get excited, the most they do is Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. Somebody jumping up and down and dancing and spinning around. This was quite a shock for the South Indians. So everyone came to see what's going on. So everybody was watching Mahaprabhu. So then the word went to the head of the temple, Bhatta. That something strange is going on. He also came. He is also astounded by seeing the dancing. He could understand that this is a sign of a very great Vaishnava, not ordinary devotee. So Mahaprabhu calmed down. Then Bhatta came. He said, "Prabhu, you please come and honor your meal in my house." So Mahaprabhu accepted his invitation. When he went there to eat, then he took rest. Then Bhatta came and began to massage his lotus feet. He said, "Prabhu," because he was a very clever fellow. Because temple president means he must be a very clever fellow. To deal with so many types of people, so he has to be a clever fellow. So he told that, "Prabhu, today rainy season has started, Chaturmasya. All the roads will be muddy, the bridges will be washed out, it will be raining many times, very difficult for doing your journey. Better you stay here in my house for the 4 months of Chaturmasya." See how clever he was? He got Mahaprabhu association for 4 months. Just imagine. So Mahaprabhu, realizing that actually it is the custom of the sadhus that they stop traveling in Chaturmasya and sit down in one place. Because it's true, the road is muddy, especially those days they didn't have nice paved roads, or so-called nice paved roads like we have now. Sometimes there's flood, sometimes bridges wash out, sometimes no place to find shelter and it's pouring down rain. So he accepted Bhatta's invitation. Now Bhatta, he had one son, his name was Gopal Bhatta. So Mahaprabhu, seeing this young boy, he had compassion upon him. He began to instruct him in the science of Krishna consciousness. Just like many devotees have come here for Bhakti Shastri course. Can you imagine doing your Bhakti Shastri with Mahaprabhu himself? This is your BIG teacher, is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So for 4 months he heard from the lotus mouth of Sriman Mahaprabhu all about the glories of Radha and Krishna. Generally, not always. If you study the songs of the Albars, they have very, very rasic songs also about Radha and Krishna. So people have this misconception about the South Indians that they're only into Narayan. But they have written so much beautiful poetry about Radha and Krishna also. But generally they're worships of Lakshmi Narayan. Lord Ranganath also forearm form of Narayan. So after 4 months of staying there, one day Mahaprabhu, he was joking with Bhatta. He said, "Your Lakshmiji, she's noted as being the most chaste woman in the entire universe. Most elevated woman in the whole universe. So yes, of course, that's true. Then why she was not able to enter the rasa dance? Excuse me. Why she was also desiring to enter into the rasa dance of Lord Krishna? So Venkata Bhatta said that is her Lord in another form. That doesn't disturb her chastity if her Lord takes the form of a cowherd boy, because they're thinking like that Krishna's avatar of Vishnu. And she associates with her Lord in that way, there's nothing, no. Mahaprabhu said, no, that's all right, I agree. But she was not allowed, your most powerful woman was not allowed to enter into the Rasa Leela. Why is that? Then Venkata Bhatta, he realized he got too far over his head now. He said, oh my Lord, only you know your pastimes. He understood Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Krishna himself, his own worshipful Lord. Because she's not allowed to enter. You can go there across the river to Belvan. You will see Lakshmiji is still sitting there performing tapasya. Jai Sisi Nitai Gaur Sundar Sisi Krishna Baldav Sisi Radha Sham Sundar. Because unless you become follower of the simple cowherd damsels of Braj, then you're not allowed to enter into Ras Leela. How Lakshmiji, the wife of Vaikuntapati, Lord Narayan, how is she going to become follower of cowherd girl? Cowherd girl is making gobar patty, milking the cow. Lakshmiji, she never saw such a thing. How should become follower of simple gopi of Braj? But every day we're singing Sakiranugata Koro. Make me a follower of the Sakis. The Nayane Hiribo Sada Yugal Roop. We'll be able to see that Yugal Roop before our very eyes. So then Venkata Bhatta could understand that the Radha Krishna Upasana is even higher than Lakshmi Narayan Upasana. He immediately understood at that point. And you can go there, that house is still there where Mahaprabhu stayed, just across from Venkata Bhatta's house. They call it Jagannath Mat, because Mahaprabhu made very, very interesting, not ordinary Jagannath deities, very interesting Jagannath deities. So it's called Jagannath Mat. A very sweet Rasik Vaishnava is there, Murlidhar, sweet name. Who's in charge of that Jagannath Mat? Mahaprabhu is very, very interesting, not ordinary looking Jagannath deities. They have faces and hands and feet and everything, very interesting looking. So that place is still there where Mahaprabhu stayed. So then it was end of Chaturmasya. So Mahaprabhu bid adieu to Venkata Bhatta and he took Gopal aside. He said, my dear Gopal, you stay here and you serve your mother and father until they leave this world. Your mother and father will try to get you married in so many ways, you never let them do this thing. Don't ever get married. And as soon as your mother and father leave this world, then you come to Vrindavan and join Rupa and Sanatan there in Braj. So Gopal Bhatta, he followed all of these things. He served his mother and father very nicely. They tried in so many ways to get him married, but he refused all types of relationships like that. And when his parents left this world, then he started off for Vrindavan. And he stayed, that time Vrindavan was all forest. Just like we see Seva Kunj and we see Nidhiban. Actually, just near Nidhuban, wonderful Bhagavad Katha is going on by Sriman Rajendraji Maharaj. And somebody who went there told me, the first day of Katha, unsolicited, he spent many minutes glorifying Srila Prabhupada, who made Vrindavan famous all over the world. He's also in South Indian Sampradaya, but he's very inclined toward Gaudiya Vaishnavism. One time we brought him here on Prabhupada's Vyas Puja, and one other sadhu mentioned Mahaprabhu as a great devotee. And Rajendraji Maharaj immediately corrected him. He said, no, he's Krishna himself. Not devotee, he's Krishna himself. So whole place like Nidhiban and Seva Kunj, whole Vrindavan was like that. So he was just staying there near Nidhiban somewhere in the jungle. That place is still there. Just near Radharaman temple, there's one place where there's an old bakul tree. Underneath that bakul tree there's an arch. That's where Gopal Bhatta was just staying. At that time there was no temples or bhajan kutirs or things. He was just staying under a tree. Sometimes he also stayed in Sanket. There's just near Sanket Devi temple, there's a bhajan kutir of Gopal Bhatta. He moved to many places, usually very secluded places. He was very rigid in his bhajan, very renounced in his bhajan. At one point he heard that Mahaprabhu was in South India. He tried to go to South India to meet him. Then he got news that Mahaprabhu had returned to Puri. Then he tried to go to Puri, and Mahaprabhu came in his dream, said, why, I told you to go to Vrindavan and stay there, now don't bother going here and there. So he never, only those 4 months of the rainy season, he got 4 months continuous association of Mahaprabhu. Meanwhile, sometimes letter was coming by courier service, not like we have nowadays, one-day delivery, overnight delivery. It would take many days for letter. There was no email, there was no Facebook. So after many days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, letter would come, and Mahaprabhu would tell Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, you come to Puri. But he never invited Gopal Bhatta. So Gopal Bhatta was feeling very sad. So one time when, I can't remember whether it was Rupa or Sanatana, one of them was going to Puri, so he sent letter with them. And after months the reply came back that I told you to stay in Vrindavan, you stay there. But he sent one little wooden choki, about this big, that Mahaprabhu sometimes would sit on, and he gave him his chadar. He said, you worship these things as non-different from myself. You can see those two things that Mahaprabhu gave to Gopal Bhatta Goswami 2 days in the year. On the Jamashtami day and on the appearance day of Radha Raman. If you look closely, you'll see on the left side of the altar, on the right side there's a big silver asan of some sort with many different shalagram shilas, and on the left side there's a silver singhasana. From rubbing that piece of wood with oil for 500 years, it's become completely black and shiny. It looks like another shila. You'll see another little black thing. That is the sitting place. And there's a cloth that they put chandan in the form of tilak over that, on the glass. It's in a glass frame. This is 500 years old. They're afraid to open it up or anything. After 500 years the cloth will probably disintegrate, so they've kept it just there. And they put chandan, you can just barely see the cloth, you can see that cloth. So you worship these things as non-different from myself. So Gopal Bhatta, he stayed there in Braj. He never went to see Mahaprabhu again. He only, those 4 months, he got straight. Heavy dose of association. When the news that Mahaprabhu has left this world, we know Mahaprabhu was dancing and suddenly he leapt. He was there in Tota Gopinath temple and he leapt onto the altar and disappeared. Sometimes the pujaris, you give them some remuneration, they will lift the skirt and you can see there's one crack in the deity's knee. They say there's a golden crack there. They say that is where Mahaprabhu disappeared. So after Mahaprabhu left this world, when that news finally reached, Gopal Bhatta was devastated. He saw this Vrindavan like the mouth of a big angry tiger. We can't imagine, we're totally in love with Vrindavan. We can't imagine thinking of Vrindavan like the mouth of a tiger. But so much was the pain of separation. All the devotees all over the world are anxious to come to Vrindavan, see the beautiful forms of Gaurnitai and Krishna Baldao and Radhasham Sundara Lidita Pisaka, to be able to stay here, to be able to come to Mangalartik where someone is actually there. People are desiring to come here. But he was seeing this Vrindavan just like a blazing forest fire, the mouth of an angry tiger. His heart was burning. He no longer wanted to stay here. So he decided to go on journey to Muktinath. Up in the Himalayas, one place is Muktinath, where all the Shalagram Shilas are coming. On the way, at the foothills of the Himalayas, there's one village called Saharanpur, still there present today. In that Saharanpur, there was one Brahmin named Mahesh Sharma. And Gopal Bhatta stayed at his house on his journey. And he told, I'm going to the Himalayas all the way up to Muktinath. You have 2 sons. You please let one of your sons come with me to render service. At that time Gopal Bhatta was an older person. Really now we see the clock is ticking on, the hairs become white, bellies become too big, we don't like to move. So we're very happy, younger devotees, they're very happy to serve us and we feel also very happy. Because now it's harder to move than like that. So he thought, let me take your son with me to help me. We can understand. So the one son was there named Damodar. So he went with Gopal Bhatta, they came to the Muktinath, there the Gandaki river is flowing. Very arduous journey. Even now it is a very arduous journey, what to speak of 500 years ago. When he saw the Gandaki river, then immediately Gopal Bhatta, he desired to take his bath. He went into the river and he took his lota and he stuck his lota in the top of the water, not deep, not very deep, just deep enough to fill his lota. But when he pulled it out, as he was about to pour the water in his head, he saw so many Shalagram Shilas that's come in his lota. That's strange, I just dipped in the top of the water, how this is? He poured that water back, again he dipped. Again he looked, and the Shalagram Shilas has come in his lota. Again he emptied out. With third time he very carefully dipped and saw that 12 Shalagram Shilas have come in his lota. Then he thought this must be something special. So he kept those 12 Shalagram Shilas. One of them was a little bit greenish. He had special markings on him. That was also known as Damodar Shila. Very beautiful Shila. So, when he got back to Saharanpur, he told Mahesh, this boy serves so nicely, please let me take him with me to Vrindavan. I'm very happy by his service. And Damodar was also pleased by serving Gopal Bhatta. He was ready to go. So Mahesh Sharma gave his blessings. He brought Damodar back here to Vrindavan. And they were serving those Shalagram Shilas. One day, it was in Shingha Chaturdasi, one Seth, one businessman from Calcutta came, and he was giving flutes and crowns and dresses for all the Goswamis' deities. And he came to Gopal Bhatta and he said, I have only this shalagram, they don't have any need for flute or crown or dress. And he felt some unhappiness in his heart. The all others are worshiping beautiful form, they can put nice dress, put ankle bells and bracelets and necklace and so many things. I'm just worshipping these Shalagram Shilas. So that evening, Nrsimha Chaturdasi evening, he began to read that part of Srimad Bhagavatam all about Lord Nrsimhadev's pastimes. We say it's all about Lord Nrsimhadev's pastimes, but actually it's more about pastimes of Prahlad. We say Srimad Bhagavatam is a beautiful story of the personality of Godhead, but more is there about the devotees than about the Lord. Chapter and chapter and chapter and chapter, just like Ratim Krishna was telling us yesterday. How many chapters are there just about this Rahugana? About this Jad Bharat? I can't remember, he told how many, he told the number. The same, so many chapters are about Prahlad. Just at the last chapter, Lord Nrsimhadev appears, he kills Hiranyakashipu, he offers some prayers and finish. Whole chapter is about Prahlad, because Lord and his devotees cannot be separated. One is the person Bhagavad, book Bhagavad and person Bhagavad. So he read all these chapters, then he closed his book. He said, my dear Lord, you appeared from a stone pillar to save your devotee Prahlad. I am in great distress. You please save me somehow or another. I am also your devotee, you please save me. So next morning, that time, he was just hanging those shilas in a tree. That tree, I told that bakul tree is still there. He would just put them in a bag and hang them in the tree and take rest under the tree. So in the morning, after taking his bath in Jamuna, he untied his bag, he brought it down, he opened up, that Damodar Shila had opened up into a beautiful form of Radha Raman. I was just reading, this is most amazing. I guess it was 1972 when the Prabhupada first brought the devotees here. Those devotees with Prabhupada got very special darshan of Radharaman. You'll never, my 30 years I have never seen, and they're not inclined to show anymore. But the Goswami who was in charge, because they knew Prabhupada lived just down the street from Radharaman temple in Vamsi Gopal temple before he lived in Damodar. He lived just down the street in Vamsi Gopal temple before he lived in Damodar. He used to walk up, the Radharaman Goswami told me, we used to see him coming down the street, torn dhoti, torn kurta, his japamala. You see here, your thumb sort of, when you're rubbing your beads, your thumb sort of rubs. There was hole. Only a few threads were there in Prabhupada's bead bag. And that road was just, now it's all stone, but that time it was just dirt road. All the sadhus used to sit on that road and have feasts there. It was so clean place. Now they made stone and asphalt and so many things, and now it's a dirty place. But they used to see Prabhupada. So he was very fond of the Radha Damodar Goswamis were very fond of Srila Prabhupada. So when Prabhupada brought his disciples there, they actually showed in the back of the deity, you can see that shalagram, original shalagram. I was just reading this on Facebook 2 months ago. One of my older godbrothers told this story. For years I'm hearing this rumor, but I've never met anybody. So finally one of my godbrothers on Facebook, he told this story. You can see, but that manifested as beautiful deity of Radharaman. And you can tell that he's not made by hand, because all the details are too delicate. One time I was there, Mahanidi Swami had these very powerful binoculars. I was looking, you can see not only toes are there, but the toe rings are there, you can see. The hole in Radharaman's hands is so small. Have you ever seen Radharaman with a flute? Anybody seen Radharaman holding his flute in his hand? We never saw. Only last Kartik, when our Pushpan Goswami was doing the seva, he put solid gold flute in Radharaman's hand for a few days. Because hole is so small, they're afraid somebody may make some mistake and the finger could break. So very rarely they will put. So they're afraid just to put flute. How to carve such a thing? Hitting, bang, 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 bang. Not possible to carve these fingers like this. All the detail you can see with binoculars, you can see his rings on his fingers, you can see rings on his toes, you can see every one of his toes, you can see the toenails, you can see the fingernails, everything is not handmade. He is auto-manifest, self-manifest deity. Radha Raman Lal Ji Maharaj Ki. The word spread like wildfire throughout Vrindavan. All the Goswamis came, they saw this beautiful form of Radha Raman. They saw that he's got the feet of Madan Mohan. He has the Vakshasthal, the chest of Gopinath. And he has the Mukha Chandra, moon-like face of Govinda. All three deities. 18 Thakur Gaudiya Vaishnava Pran. Chaitanya Charitamrita says these are the life, these three deities are the life. All three of them were in the form of Radha Raman. Everyone was totally amazed. So of course, at least among the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Radharaman, he's one of the most favorite Thakurjis of whole Vrindavan. Every day on Facebook, 2 or 3 people putting picture of, every day we have to see his beautiful form, with a beautiful lotus eyes, beautiful smile, beautiful tilak, beautiful dress, they exquisitely dressing him. So this is the worshipable deity of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And just next to that tree, then there's actual samadhi of, today is his disappearance day, samadhi is there of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And Gopal Bhatta Goswami, he's very famous. He collaborated with Sanatana Goswami. There's various opinions whether Hari Bhakti Vilas was written by Sanatana Goswami or written by Gopal Bhatta. Anyway, both of them were involved somehow. There's 2 parties have different opinions, Goswami camps. But anyway, somehow he also collaborated. On our Vaishnava Smriti, all the rules and regulations. Because within the scriptures, scripture means Shastra. Shastra comes from the word Shashan. Shastra means to guide. Shastra is there to guide us back to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha Shyam Sundar. Every type of guidance is there, not only even practical thing. Everything is there. Actually, it says after passing, one should wash his hand 10 times. We cannot follow these things. I know one great Vaishnava, he goes around like that 10 times just to follow this rule. The rule is there. After passing urine once, after stool you have to wash your hands 10 times. So 10 times he smears his hands around like that. Then one should brush his teeth, then he should scrape his tongue. Everything out in order, everything is, even up to those tiny details, all the way up to the deep philosophical details of puja, everything is there within this Hari Bhakti Vilas. This is our rules and regulations for Vaishnavas. So this is one of our law books for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So this is the collaboration of Sanatana Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami. So just nearby the Radharaman temple, his Samadhi Mandir is there. So if you like today, you can go there and pay your respects at his dust of his lotus feet, make some small offering, beg for his mercy. Because these Goswamis, they never distributed any books, they wrote so many books. They left the duty for distributing those books to us. Somebody has, if we want to distribute books, somebody has to write it first. So they took that service of writing all of these wonderful books. And our Krishna conscious movement is completely based on all of the Goswami literature, even up to the point of our traveling Sankirtan. Just like we know that Jiva Goswami, he had some merchants in Mathura build a special Sankirtan band. Just like we do, we take an old Dodge van or a Mercedes van in Europe, depending on where your Nissan van, if other parts of the world, you rip out all the seats, you build a platform to store the books, and put some mats so you can sleep inside the van. This is exactly following in the footsteps. Jiva Goswami made a special Sankirtan van for book distribution. They kept the books and distribute those books in Bengal. We know that story, that's for another day. So anyway, the distribution of those books, that is our duty. So we can go and pray at the lotus feet of Gopal Bhatta Goswami to please shower his mercy upon us, that we can please our spiritual master who spread this teachings of the Goswamis all over the whole world, and somehow we can please Srila Prabhupada by distributing these books. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami Maharaj Ki. So anybody has any questions or anything else I may have missed about Gopal Bhatta Goswami?